You're tuned to the Witching Hours on CKCU 93.1 FM in Ottawa. Tonight on the Witching Hours, I'm interviewing Patrick McQueary from Reno, Nevada. Patrick is a video creator that travels to some of the world's most haunted locations. Check out the haunted side on YouTube if you ever get the chance to do that. Pretty cool stuff. I'd like to welcome Patrick to the show. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. So could you tell the listeners a bit about your YouTube channel, The Haunted Side?
Sure. So I've been doing paranormal investigations now for probably like 20 years. I've done like literally over 1,000 investigations.
Nice.
And just recently, a buddy of mine was like, you should actually start posting some of this stuff to YouTube because it's actually pretty good. So I started editing and posting up some videos. I actually just started the channel maybe 3 months ago, something like that. So yeah, brand new.
So what are some of the haunted locations you visited and what did you experience there?
Oh man. So I actually moved out to Reno just about maybe 7 months ago. Just because of like Virginia City, like from my house to Virginia City is like 25 minutes. So it's super, super cool. So I've done the Washoe Club down there. I've done the Mackey Mansion now. I've done this place called the Cigar Bar, which actually it used to be the funeral home all through the 1800s and early 1900s. And this place, I've been in, like I said, I've done 1,000 investigations, and this building is like probably one of the most haunted, like the most craziest places I've ever been in.
What happened?
It's so for the first time I went, and so for my investigations, I actually go completely by myself. So I have a crew that we do all of the B-roll and the interviews and all that kind of stuff. But for the actual investigations, we set up cameras, and then everybody leaves except me. So I'm walking around, completely by myself with a camera while there's static night vision cameras running and stuff like that. And the first time I went, every single camera had some kind of crazy issue. Like either it would stop recording, the files got corrupted. When we went back to actually review all the footage, there was one camera that was filming the bar area, and it had like an hour of usable footage. And there's like 8 or 9 cameras that ran for like 6 hours, and there was only 1 hour of usable footage. It was crazy. Yeah.
We get stuff like that on the show all the time, like almost every single week. When I go to do the show, there's technical glitches, or like I remember one time the voice slowed down, so it sounded like this demonic possessed voice. I'm like, what the hell?
Oh man.
Yeah, it was so crazy. But then the weirdest thing was that night when I did an interview with my guest, you could hear the same voice at the same time he was talking, like that low demonic. I was like, what the hell's going on here?
Oh man.
Yeah. So have you ever felt a negative or demonic presence around you while doing these things?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's one of the things I really enjoy the most is I'll do investigations for families and for like private residences that have like these really dark, demonic infestations and entities there. And actually I was scratched. I mean, I've been scratched probably a dozen times by stuff, but I was doing a case in Pennsylvania actually where I was scratched so hard on my side that it actually started bleeding.
Wow. Yeah, they can actually harm you. It's kind of scary to think about. So has a spirit ever attached itself to you after visiting a haunted location?
Not me personally. I have had crew that's been affected by stuff, and one of the guys is like really cool, really nice, low key kind of guy, but he turned into just like not a very nice person, screaming at people, like yelling, really irritated and really agitated. And he was not that kind of person.
Like a possession.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so for me, like I like do like everything I can to make sure that whatever it is, stays, where it is, or stays out, like off of me or out of me. People always ask me, that's a question I get asked a lot, is like, what do you do to protect yourself? And I tell them, what don't I do? Like I'll take, I'll take anything from any kind of religion or any kind of spiritual, guidance or anything. Like whatever somebody thinks might work, I'll do it. So if it
Mm-hmm.
means walking around with crystals, I'll do it. Burning sage, I'll do it. Saying prayers, I'll do it. Pretty much anything you can think of, because I'd rather, uh, have it and not need it than the vice versa of that. So
Exactly. Okay. So, what do you think happens to our consciousness after we die?
that is a wonderful question. And honestly, probably the reason that I'm doing this, I've spent 20 years now kind of researching this is to answer that question. So for myself personally, I think that there absolutely is some kind of consciousness after, what we see as this world. But what that is, I'm not sure. I did grow up, I grew up Catholic, my family was like hardcore Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up in that kind of mindset, but, as I got older, I'm kind of a little bit more spiritual and not so much like organized religion, but yeah, there's something out there.
Okay. So, we're just going to take a quick break and listen to a song. And when we come back, we're going to be playing the EVPs that you sent me. And I have some more
Sure.
questions for you. So, your tune.
Absolutely.
Great. So, I'm here with paranormal investigator Patrick McQueary from The Haunted Side. How are you doing?
Oh, wonderful. Actually, that song was a jam. I like that one.
You were jamming out over there?
I was. That was good.
Nice. So you sent me some EVPs, otherwise known as electronic voice phenomenon. Could you explain to me the story behind this first EVP we're going to listen to titled Yes, I Am?
Yeah, so this was actually a friend of mine that lived in Las Vegas, and his uncle had actually passed away like very recently, and his whole family was taking it really hard, and they felt like he was still there. And so I was, absolutely, I was like, I'm there, I'll see what I can do. And one of the things I told him is like, don't tell me like his name, don't tell me any information about him. I want to kind of go in and see what I pick up, because I went into their house completely, like I said, by myself, and so this one was actually in the garage, and I was asking if anybody's here, and this one, I wouldn't consider this one class A. I think this is more class B, but there was definitely this weird like interference. And, I was in a, like I said, I was in a garage. It was complete silence. So there shouldn't have been anything weird like this, but there's like a really weird kind of radio frequency, disturbance. And then you can kind of hear a voice. To me, it sounds like it's kind of drawn out saying, yes, I am.
Okay.
But yeah, if you play it, you can hear it better.
Okay, we're going to have a listen right now.
Mhm.
Is anybody here?
Okay, so it's almost like you can hear like breathing and like somebody trying to talk there.
Yeah, that's what I caught, and I listened to it 100 times, and I kind of made out like a little bit of like in the beginning. It's kind of like yes, I am. It's kind of how I heard it.
Like
but,
super old voice. Okay.
yeah.
So the second EVP we're listening to is titled Coming. What is the story behind this one?
So this one is actually an EVP I captured when I was doing the case for that family in Philadelphia. And so this is what I heard about 30 seconds before I felt whatever it was scratch me.
Okay.
And this was when it started bleeding. It scratched me so hard. And yeah, so I forget exactly what I asked, but I was like, can you make a loud noise or can you do something right now? And then you hear this really dark, deep voice say coming.
Okay.
Like it was warning me, like it was letting me know.
Whoa. Okay, let's take a listen.
Wait. Can you make a really loud noise right now?
That's creepy.
Yeah.
Just a little bit creepy. It's like coming.
Yeah. And so I had a friend of mine that's really big into audio. He actually tore that apart and really just analyzed even the frequency that was in.
Mm-hmm.
And he called me at like 3:00 in the morning freaking out because he was like, this is impossible. He goes, it's a human voice. It has tone, is spoken in a frequency that is impossible for a human to speak in.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, it like changed. He started going to church and all kinds of stuff after hearing that. Yeah,
Nice.
it was crazy.
Okay. So this last EVP, I think, is probably one of the clearest ones, titled "I Got the Boy." So what is that?
Yeah.
What was happening when
So
this was recorded?
oh man, this one has like a pretty traumatic and pretty devastating backstory. Really, really sad. So this was in upstate New York. There was a hotel, kind of like a bed and breakfast. I think it had like 7 or 8 rooms in it. And back in the 90s, there was a father who checked into the hotel with his son. The son actually was autistic. And then when they were there, the father, he actually murdered the son, killed his child, and then killed himself in this hotel room.
Wow.
And I was actually up in that area, and I was like, oh man, I need to go and check this out and see what kind of energy is there, and if there was something trapped behind, like if that child's spirit was trapped behind, doing whatever I could to help that leave.
Mm-hmm.
And again, completely by myself, and heard. I didn't get very much activity, other than this voice that clear as day, no mistaking, says, "I got the boy."
Okay, let's have a listen.
Did you die here?
Just gonna play that back one more time.
Did you die here?
Okay, so it's like a whisper.
Yeah, it's like I got the boy.
That's so creepy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what inspired you to get into paranormal investigating?
So this is also a pretty crazy story. So my family, I'm actually from Texas originally. I was born in Dallas. And my family, when I was like 9 years old, 8 or 9 years old, we moved into this old farmhouse about an hour east of Dallas, just outside of Dallas. And come to find out, it actually was a satanic church. All through the 1960s.
Okay.
So when we moved in, we found a bunch of altars. There was like altars in the attic, altars in the basement. They were all over the property, like in the barns and everything. And just almost immediately started just hearing weird stuff like scratches and thuds and growls and stuff coming from the basement, coming from the attic. And me being a boy growing up in Texas, like I knew what like a raccoon sounded like, or what what I mean, like what an animal would sound like. And this was not animal. Like I back then, even I would run up into the attic with a flashlight after I would hear something, looking for what it could possibly be. Trying to kind of disprove that, or figure, just trying to figure out what it is, debunking it.
Yeah.
And never could. There was nothing up there. But what really the experience that really just like, I was like, yep, there's something here. There's something about this paranormal stuff. Was same house. I felt something. One night I was sleeping and I just felt something just sit on the edge of my bed. And I have 2 brothers, so I figured, it's one of my brothers. So I wake up and I look, and there's just this black figure sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall. And what was just the creepiest thing is that I could see, like in the blanket, I could see a depression where there was like weight, like something was sitting there.
And so you make out any features or anything?
What's that?
You couldn't make out the features of the face. It was just black, right?
No, it was just blacker than black. Just humanoid kind of shape. And yeah, it was just hanging out, and I didn't hang out very long. I bolted out of the room pretty quickly.
Yeah, the same thing happened to my mother, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, when I was 17, we lived in a haunted house, and she kept being visited by black shadow beings. And one day she took us outside. Like, all of us were experiencing paranormal activity, and like to the point where water would turn on its own, lights would flick on and off on its own. We would see shadows and stuff. But then she took us outside one day and she said, we need to move out of here. This house is haunted. She said, don't talk about it inside of the house. But last night I was flipped in my bed by a black shadow. And then I went into the house, and me, like the idiot that I was, told my boyfriend at the time, I was like, my mom just got flipped in her bed last night by this black shadow. We have to move. And then all the lights in the house turned off for a minute and then turned back on. So weird. Yeah. So I hear the same story, like black shadow beings, from people that I interview on the show all the time. So it's happening all over the world, you know?
Yeah. Well, and so that was creepy, but what happened to the middle brother was like terrifying.
Your brother?
Yeah, my middle brother. Yeah. This is why we only lived in this house for about 4 months.
Okay.
And it was right after this happened that my parents were like, no, we're done.
Wow.
So I'll kind of set the scene. So we're all like in the living room, just hanging out, sitting down. We were actually watching Batman, like Batman Returns or something, like Michael Keaton Batman. That is Batman for me. I mean, Michael Keaton's Batman. Yeah. But anyway, so we're sitting around watching this movie. And all of a sudden, my brother, he just gets really sick, like out of nowhere, like vomiting, and just acting really strange. And my mom's like, "Oh my God, like, are you okay?" You know, she feels him, he's burning up. She takes his temperature. He's got like 103 fever. Crazy. And it was like something just flipped a switch, like just all of a sudden, this starts happening. And my mom, I said we grew up Catholic, so she's super religious. She's like, "Oh my God," like, saying prayers and she's like putting cold cloth on his head, trying to break the fever, and nothing's working. He's like screaming, "Leave me alone, stop touching me, get out of me," all this kind of weird stuff. And this goes on for, probably 5 to 10 minutes, something like that, pretty suddenly. And my mom is like, "Okay, like we have to go to the emergency room. Like he needs to go to the hospital." And so she says this other prayer, and like it was like another, like a light switch, like just flipped again, and he just snapped out of it. Fever broke. He was just like laying there, like confused and like looking around, like disoriented, like what just happened. And then he told us like what he saw and what happened, and it's just insane, like it's just terrifying. But he said that the room, like all of a sudden, was just like it just got flooded with these dark figures. And he didn't say like it was like 5 or 6. He said there were dozens, like probably God. 40, 50, 60. Tons of these black figures, and they were growling and laughing, like sinisterly laughing. And like like messing with him is what it said. Is what he said. It felt like. And then he said, and this I'm getting chills and just thinking about it again. But
you're giving me chills.
He said that he actually said that he looked out of the window that was in that room, and he said that he saw what looked like the figure of Jesus, is what he said.
Wow. I got chills.
Yeah. And he said that this figure was banging on the windows, or banging on the glass, screaming, "Let me in, let me in. I'm trying to help you. I want to help you. Let me in." And then I know
I just got
it's
chills
crazy.
through my whole body.
Yeah. And then so that was like right as my mom was finishing one of the prayers that she said, and then right at the end, boom, snaps out of it, and that's when he kind of comes to. It's like, oh my God, like. And just absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, it's because it was a satanic church, you said, right? That's crazy.
Yeah, we actually did a little bit more research and found out that it actually was a crime scene. Like there was actually human remains.
Oh my God.
In the house and in the basement and things. Yeah.
That's insane. Yeah, I've lived in houses very similar to that before, and it's terrifying. So have you ever experienced poltergeist activity with things moving on their own, stuff like that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Actually, just recently, I was filming. Actually, it was at the cigar bar. It was the building I was telling you about earlier as well. I went back a second time and actually brought a cameraman with me that was just there to make sure the cameras stayed on. And one of the static, like infrared cameras that we put in the basement of this place, which actually is believed to be a portal, and there's actually a tunnel that leads to the whole underground tunnels of Virginia City, Nevada, which is just like crazy stuff happening there, murders and suicides and all kinds of stuff. And it's like 3 feet away from where we had this camera posted up. And there's supposedly like a child spirit that's down there. And so I put like a little reindeer toy. This is like right before right before Christmas, and I put a little reindeer toy on this table, and I had the night vision camera pointing at it, and I left a digital recorder right next to it. Well, on the camera, it turns off just all of a sudden. It just shuts off, and then like I don't know how long afterwards, but it turns back on for like 7 seconds. And it's weird because you can actually see the camera shaking, like something was touching it or something was like messing with it, because the picture is actually shaking in the camera. And then you see this shadow, this black shadow, just kind of move across the table towards the camera, and then it absolutely shuts off and then doesn't come back on.
Wow.
Like it was pretty creepy. And
just a little bit.
I noticed that and then the digital recorder that I had sitting next to the reindeer toy was actually knocked onto the ground.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but it didn't film that. It didn't capture that.
Oh.
I wish that it would have, but sometime, when it got turned off the first time, it got knocked over and then turned back on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty creepy.
It's a little bit creepy for sure. So I have more questions for you, but I'm just gonna go to one more song before we do that. So this is Ghost Song by The Doors. You're tuned to the Witching Hours on CKCU 93.1 FM in Ottawa. You're tuned to the Witching Hours on CKCU 93.1 FM in Ottawa. That was Ghost Song by The Doors. I'm here interviewing Patrick McQueary. How you doing?
Oh, wonderful.
Awesome. So, has anyone close to you ever passed away only to have their spirit visit you after their death?
So, personally, no. Like, I've never had or felt like there's ever been any family members or anybody that was close to me, come back or try and communicate through any of the equipment or anything that I have, which is kind of strange because I would imagine, they knew how, because my grandfather actually passed away recently within the last couple of years, and I mean, he knew how big I was into this stuff and even how it works. So, but yeah, no, I never have.
Okay. So what are your thoughts on the possibility of alien and extraterrestrial life?
I think that there absolutely has to be something out there, and that us as, human beings on planet Earth would have to be incredibly naive to think that how big and vast the universe is, that we are the only thing alive out here. I think there's definitely something out there.
Okay. Have you ever seen a UFO or strange lights in the sky before?
I have actually.
What happened?
And so this was back in Texas as well. It might have been around the same time that we lived in that house too. I was younger. I was probably like 8 or 9, maybe a little bit younger than that. But I actually saw these weird like triangle lights that were they were like flashing weird colors, but it was like 3 different things, but they were formed into a triangle, and they were turning from like red to green to yellow, all this kind of stuff, which to me, I was like, well, that doesn't look like a plane, because planes don't flash like, purple, and it was like going through all of the colors. It was just really strange, and you could tell that there were 3 of them, and then they kind of like got really far apart, like quickly, where it would have had to be something moving really, really fast, because they separated really quickly, but still in like triangle form, and then got really close together again, and then just disappeared.
Yeah, that's not a plane.
Yeah, I was like, that's pretty interesting if that's a plane, but yeah, no. And then actually living here in Reno now, the Sierra Nevada mountain range, there's all kinds of crazy stuff that you see out here. And I've got some friends that are pilots and flight attendants for a lot of the big companies, and this is kind of like a hub for a lot of places, especially going down to Vegas and stuff, and they're always talking about just the crazy stuff they see out there, and I'll ask them, I'll be like, well, I always see these weird kind of shimmering lights, like kind of northwest of Reno, like up in those mountain ranges, and they're like, yeah, we see that stuff too, and that's not any of us. Like, that's not that's not anything that's identified. And I'm
Hmm.
like, man, that's a little creepy.
Okay. So, do you think that aliens are abducting humans and animals, or?
Um, who knows? I mean, I wouldn't cross it out. Like I wouldn't, say that they're definitely not, but I wouldn't say that they are because I've never seen or hopefully I've never been.
Mm-hmm.
I guess maybe you wouldn't know, right? That's kind of the theory there is that you don't even know.
Yeah, I've actually seen
But
gray aliens in person twice.
oh wow,
Yeah,
that's
like at
fantastic.
nighttime near forested areas, and
So so here in Reno, there is this weird thing that I keep seeing at night out here, and it kind of looks like an owl, but it's like
mm,
4 or 5 feet high, like
that's not
tall.
an
Like
owl.
it's yeah, it's a lot bigger than an owl would be,
Okay.
and it looks kind of whitish gray, and it's just like it is more in like the rural areas because Reno, I mean, it's not. They call it the biggest little city because it's actually pretty small. I mean, you just go 10 minutes out of town and you're in some pretty rural kind of desert areas and stuff, and I'll see it like just standing somewhere, like standing in a field, and then
Mm,
I'll look back and it's gone. Or like driving, kind of. There's a freeway that kind of goes along the outskirts of town. It's called Veterans Memorial Freeway Highway, and just like around like some of the street lights out there, I'll kind of see it, and then it just kind of like not flies away, but just kind of like just weird, just like teleports away. Like yeah, I've
wow.
seen it like at least probably 7 or 8 times now. It's pretty creepy.
I wonder if, because you're so tapped into the paranormal side of life, if that naturally just, because I know for me, I've had a lot of paranormal and alien experiences. So I wonder if
hmm
those worlds are connected in some way.
I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't be. Yeah, I mean, they're definitely a possibility. Because the paranormal world, what we know is paranormal, especially for me, like it's we don't know very much about it. People are always asking me like, well, Patrick, you're an expert in this field, what do you think? And I'm like, well, actually, I don't think there's any experts
No.
because we don't fully understand it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I have a lot of experience, and there are people who have even way more experience than I do, and I don't consider them experts either. So I
Right.
mean, maybe we'll end up finding out that all this EVP stuff and everything is actually extraterrestrial transmissions and stuff. Who knows?
That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, that would be, that would be pretty awesome.
I
Yeah.
was just wondering if maybe that's why the being was showing itself to you, because perhaps it knows you do these types of things and you wouldn't be
It-
scared, you know what I mean?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that would absolutely make sense. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm out there, researching and documenting all facets of the paranormal. So, I mean, not just ghosts, but, aliens and all that kind of stuff. I mean, anything that is by definition paranormal,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be there with a camera, saying smile.
Nice. Okay. So I'm just going to switch topics a little bit.
Sure.
So what do you think is the purpose of our existence?
Oh man, that is a deep question. I should have got these beforehand. I could have had something really nice planned out.
Just whatever
I
you
mean,
think off the top of your head.
I know, I like it. No, the purpose of our existence. Um, I think. I mean, who knows? I mean, I think it depends on who you are and what's in your heart and what your calling is. But I mean, I think that we're here um, to help each other out. I think we're here to show love and show compassion for one another. And who knows? I mean, maybe this is a big science experiment, and or maybe have you read about this, like we're a computer simulated program,
Yeah, we talked
and
about that
how
on my last show. Is Earth a
yeah
simulation?
and so I have done a lot of research into quantum physics and quantum mechanics and a lot of that kind of stuff, and it's like kind of eerily it's kind of shocking as you kind of really dig into this stuff, how the only like explanation for the things that are happening is that. You know what I mean? It's like, you're going through, and all this scientific stuff is proving that the only way that's possible is if we're in some kind of simulation like that. Which, it's who knows? I mean,
It's definitely a
who knows?
possibility.
Yeah, that's what scares me, is that I'm like, I don't want to believe it, but at the same time, I'm like, just narrowing it all down, like, holy crap, we might actually be.
Yeah, it's very
or
possible.
that makes the most sense. That's what's scary. It's that that's kind of like, yeah, well, that would explain it all.
Or just like an alien experiment hybridization program. Who knows? So what do you? How can we make our world a better place to live in? What do you think?
I think we can make our world a better place if we just eliminate the hate and eliminate just the anger and the negativity, because it's everywhere. I mean, even the paranormal world, and I'll kind of relate it to my line of work, but I mean, just like, I see so much like hatred and jealousy and like backstabbing and all this stuff going on, and I just like, I look at it like, are you guys serious? Like, we're all trying to do the same thing. We all have the same goal in mind. Why, and it's so rare to capture something that's really great evidence. I'm like, why isn't everybody just helping everybody out? Why can't you just kind of put your egos aside, or put, all these different things aside, and just have a common goal and try and accomplish it?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think, in every facet, if people can kind of just put aside the egos and put aside, the craziness, and just say, hey, you know what? In 100 years, it's not going to matter anyways. We're all going to be dead. We might as well have some fun and do what we love, while we're here.
Yep. Okay. So what is the next creative project you're working on at the moment, or the next haunted location you're going to visit?
So I have actually got a bunch of just insane stuff going on. I've actually got a series I'm putting together for Netflix. And it's actually going to be the haunted side. So it's going to be, the series where I'm going out to these places, by myself, which people are like, Patrick, you're an idiot. Why would you ever do that? But, yeah, I'm putting that together currently. And I've also got a project that's, I can't say too much about it. I can't say all the details, but it's coming to Travel Channel. It's a greenlit show that's coming to Travel Channel sometime later on this year. That's going to be super, super cool. And somebody backed out at the last minute, and they were scrambling, and they actually found me through the social media stuff, and
Nice.
said, hey, Patrick, would you like to be a paranormal investigator on this thing? And I'm like, yes.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, I'm super stoked on that one.
Okay.
And then the next haunted location that I'm filming at is actually, I'm going to be going to back to Mackey Mansion. I'm supposed to be going there again, but I actually am going to Salt Lake City, and I'm filming in Ted Bundy's old apartment and a cellar out in the woods where he held a bunch of his victims.
Oh, God. Nice.
Yeah, so that should be a fun evening.
I'm sure you'll pick up something there for sure.
Oh, I would imagine. Yeah, I can't. All that energy and all that negativity down there, because in this room in the cellar is actually where he tortured and killed like almost a dozen women. Yeah.
Whoa.
And it's small. It's like 6 by 6. Like it's tiny little room, or maybe like 10 by 6.
Do that.
Yeah,
That's crazy. So how can our listeners find you via social media and YouTube?
Sure. If you just search The Haunted Side on just about everything, you can find it. Or you can just head over to thehauntedSide.com. That kind of links to everything.
Okay, perfect. So thank you for taking the time to do this interview, Patrick. I really appreciate it. And
absolutely.
So you can find him on YouTube at The Haunted Side or thehauntedSide.com. Have a great night, and I will see you on social media, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Oh, and one last thing.
Yes.
If anybody knows of like locations, that's another big thing, is that trying to find these locations and find people who own them can be challenging at times. So if there are listeners that are like, oh my God, like I have this old, abandoned tuberculosis hospital that I know, something like that. That's kind of the holy grail. But if people know of locations, or if they're like, oh my God, I have access to this, that is like huge, because I definitely advocate not trespassing.
Okay.
Don't do that kind of stuff. So
If you're willing to
yeah.
travel to Canada, I know of a few places I could recommend to you. So,
Absolutely, I'll be on the next flight.
all right, cool. So I'll be in touch. You have a great night.
Awesome, you too. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
You're tuned to the Witching Hours on CKCU 93.1 FM in Ottawa. We just did an interview with Patrick McQueary from Nevada, Reno, Nevada. And he hosts The Haunted Side, which is a paranormal investigative show on